Welcome to another episode of Chad Sports Talk. You don't know, my name's Chad. Take a dive in the world of sports. It's going to be difficult for teams to kind of beat another team twice in 1 year. But like I said previously, there's hard times to beat a team twice. And this is a continuing thing I'm going to go throughout these because there's a lot of rematches in these showdowns. Well, yeah, that kind of proved me wrong. Because, like I said, there was a lot of rematches this past weekend in the conference championship games, and yeah. Well, these proved me wrong. So let's just go ahead and kick it off on last Friday's action with the surprising 11-1 Roadrunners of UTSA hosting Western Kentucky for Conference USA Championship. This is the one that kind of went with Western Kentucky because they did kind of was battling UTSA previously on October 9th until UTSA finally was able to squeak out, and UTSA jumped on the gun early. They came out swinging hard. They're already up 28-13 at the half, so they pretty much had this game under wraps. The local standout recruit, Sincere McCormick, had at the end of the game 204 yards on the ground and 3 touchdowns. He was just ran over the Hilltoppers, but the Hilltoppers would not go away. They made a furious comeback. Zap had 577 yards in the airs and 4 TDs. They were trying their best, but UTSA held on to win their first ever conference championship and beat Western Kentucky 49-41. So congrats to the Roadrunners for this magical feat and for the fact that this program's only been running for about 10 years. So this is a good aspect of where they're at. They locked up their head coach for the long term. So you'll probably see some good runs with these guys for a while. Depends on how long this current class stays with them. Then we head out to Vegas for the Pac-12 championship between Oregon and Utah. And, that old trope that it's hard to beat a team twice. UTSA are proving me wrong. Utah did the exact same thing. A couple weeks ago, Utah put the smackdown on Oregon. And this was the conclusion of that game. I mean, it was just, Utah was just all over Oregon. It did not matter. It was Anthony Brown couldn't do anything in the air except throw it to the other team. He had 2 picks. It was really like Cameron Rising for the Utes. He also, tried to do his best to help out. Defense just stepped up and just really took it to it with like 4 sacks overall against on Oregon by the Utah. 5 tackles for a loss, and it was just a dominating performance. Oregon could not get anything running, couldn't get anything going. Travis Zion had 82 yards on the ground. Anthony Brown's only 147 yards in the air. It was just, the Utah just came out, laid the smackdown, and routed the Ducks again to take their first ever Pac-12 title, 38-10. So as you know, Friday already started off 0-2. Then we head to Arlington for another rematch between Baylor and Oklahoma State. And this one was a gem of a defensive game. It really wasn't much. I mean, Baylor jumped up early. They got up to 21 points at half. And that was it. Oklahoma State's defense locked them down that second half, pretty much like what they did against OU the previous week. And Oklahoma State was trying to come back. It was a 4th down play at the end of the game that it just ended up coming inches short of crossing the, breaking the plane to the goal line. And Baylor holds on and beats Oklahoma State 21-16. Some of the key factors in this one was the Baylor's defense picked off Sanders 4 times. So the Oklahoma State offense was pretty much inept throughout this game, thanks to the Baylor's D, and this was a defensive gem between these two teams. So hats off to Baylor, but once again, kind of rub some salt in the wounds on my college picks. Let's head up to Detroit. We had Northern Illinois taking on Kent State for the MAC title. Once again, it's another rematch. Kent won the previous one in November. At least Northern Illinois helped prove my point. It's hard to beat the same team twice. Northern Illinois came out swinging. They were up big early, held off a late Kent State run towards the end, and beat Kent State 41-23 to win the MAC. Then out there in San Diego, where San Diego State was playing host to Utah State, I figure San Diego State will finally, win this thing. And I was kind of saying for these past few weeks, San Diego State wasn't playing all that great until last week against Boise State. They showed up and they beat Broncos to put themselves in this position. They kind of forgot to bring that rest of that mentality to the Mountain West Championship game, because Utah State came out on just on fire. Logan Bonner had 318 yards passing, 4 touchdowns in the air. Well, San Diego State's dual quarterback threat could barely muster 167 yards combined in the touchdown. It was just a shellacking in the air as the Aggies' aerial attack just handled San Diego State. Their defense stepped up, did what they had to do to rectify it. I mean, they sacked the Aztecs 5 times. So they couldn't get any offensive going. It was just all Aggies all day as they routed the Aztec 46-13 to win the Mountain West. And down there in Lafayette, Louisiana, we had the Raging Cajuns playing host to the Mountaineers of Appalachian State. Now, these two teams did face off previously, and I still called it for Louisiana to beat them again. Kind of going against what I've been saying most of the last week. And I thought it was going to be a blowout. Au contraire, mon frère. Appalachian State actually came out to play, and they played Louisiana very, very tough. And it was a good showing between both of these schools to kind of, see how things kind of go. Lewis was just 200 yards at a touchdown in the air for the Cajuns. Chase Bryce only had 119 yards and a touchdown for the Mountaineers. Rushing wasn't. I mean, it was more on the Cajun side because Bailey had over 100 yards with a touchdown. And it's just a good quality, solid performance by these defenses as well. Appalachian State had 4 sacks. Louisiana had 3. No really turnovers really to speak of it. And except for that one by Bryce, but it was just a good, solid, performance between these two programs, and Louisiana held on to win 24-16 to win the Sun Belt outright this year. Next, we'll go to the Charlotte for the ACC title game between Pitt and Wake Forest. These are the 2 top teams from the ACC. No Clemson. So let you know there's some things. Kenny Pickett was pretty much the focal point of this. He was pretty much, a stellar quarterback up there in Pitt. He pretty much surpassed Marino's school records. So he should be a very good quarterback in the next level. Whoever, if he goes to the right team, of course. And, Pitt was just too much defensive-wise. Hartman couldn't do anything towards the end of the game. Hartman just was out of it. He was couldn't do anything. He threw like 2 picks, one for a touchdown. Pickett had 253 yards in the air, 2 TDs. Izzy. I'm not going to try to butcher his name. His real name is Israel, but he goes by Izzy. And there was a sign actually that said Izzy to the Hizzy. Yeah, he made it to the Hizzy. Twizzy. All right, that was terrible. My bad. But Izzy hit pay dirt twice in this game, and Pitt was just too much for Wake. Pretty much manhandled him from the word go. Even though Wake had scored those 21 points in the first quarter, but after that, all Pitt all day, they ended up winning 45-21 to take the ACC their first ever ACC title. There's a lot of firsts floating around this past weekend. We'll go ahead and head over to the Big Ten Championship over there in Indianapolis between Michigan and Iowa. The second-ranked Wolverines was looking to make so once again, there's no Ohio State this time around, so there's two conferences that'll have two new champions. Michigan hasn't won in a while. Iowa hasn't been there. Iowa had to get some help to get in there, but Iowa still had one of those great defenses. Michigan has been running high after their stumble against Michigan State. You started performing at the elite level. The offense and defense have both been in sync to go over that hurdle, knocking off Ohio State. And that continued against Iowa. That defense was just stifling against the Hawkeyes. They couldn't do anything. Hutchinson was a master of that defense, and Iowa only get 3 points for the entire game. So it was just a defensive gen by the Wolverines. The offense did exactly what they needed to do. McNamara had the TD. Donovan Edwards even had a TD. And the rushing attack was just very, very balanced between Corum and Haskins. Well, Corum with a touchdown. Haskins had 2. It was just a well-balanced to ensure that the Wolverines won their first outright Big 12 title in some time. Because you don't normally hear about that, but they dominated Iowa and beat them 42-3 to clinch their position in the college football playoff. And then we had the American Championship in Cincinnati, where the undefeated Cincinnati Bearcats were playing host to the 11-1 Houston Cougars. And Ritter and Toon put on a show. These are two quality quarterbacks going at it. And Ritter just was able to outduel them. He didn't have to do much. It wasn't, flashy in the air from Ritter, because he only had 190 yards in the air. But he had 3 TDs. Toon had 250 yards in the air, 2 TDs and a pick. So he was a little bit better in the air, but it was all Jerome Ford. The Cincinnati tailback had 187 yards and 2 TDs on the ground. That really set the pace for this Cincinnati attack to really, set the tone. And it was just, and that Cincinnati defense was playing havoc in that backfield. They had 8 sacks of Toon. It was just unreal what they were doing back there, including 12 tackles for loss. And, that was all needed for Cincinnati to take advantage of the Oklahoma State loss and be the first Group of 5 member to punch their ticket into the college football playoff. And then you had the granddaddy of them all, of all the conference championship games, and that was SEC championship there in Atlanta, where the number 1 team in the country, the best team in the nation, the undefeated Bulldogs, were taking on the old stable of the Crimson Tide, who come in 11-1. Now, Crimson Tide kind of limped into this game. I mean, they struggled against Auburn, and they played New Mexico State previously, but Georgia, they were playing cupcakes as well, blowing out Georgia Tech, and then the FCS opponent they took on prior to that. So neither one really had a true test. Alabama had more of a scare than anything else. But it's just one of these things. Alabama needed to win this to stay in it. Right now, Notre Dame's looking at this game, trying to see if they can sneak in. Because right now, Oklahoma State lost to Baylor, kind of opened the floodgates for them a bit, and Notre Dame had some pieces fall into place. Michigan won, which knocked them out. Cincinnati won, which, also didn't really help. But, and it was Georgia supposed to be the best team in the nation. And something about Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs, when they have to take on Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide in the big game, SEC championship, they fold. Plain and simple. There's no rhyme or reason for it. They fold. Alabama was the underdog. Georgia should have been underdog how this game played out. It was a shellacking early, and it was like 24-17 at the end of the half. And it was just nothing but defense after this. Bryce Young actually showed why he is a Heisman candidate in this game. He had 421 yards in the air and 3 TDs. I mean, that's pretty spectacular for the SEC championship game. It shows how much of a true talent he really is. Bennett for Georgia was no slouch either. He had 340 yards in the air, 3 TDs, but he had 2 picks, which really kind of summed up some of the issues that Georgia had against Alabama. I mean, it was 2 touchdowns that really, really sealed it, especially when Battle takes one for 42 yards to the house. As Alabama defense showed up and outperformed the Bulldogs defense. And Alabama was just way too much for Georgia. Again, Alabama's ended up winning 41-24 and into the playoff again. Seems like Nick Saban's second home is a college football playoff. And that was it. That kind of solidified my this past weekend, and I guess the shaving of the facial hair hampered my college game because I ended up going 4-6, and it was pretty bad. Now, in terms of the college football playoff, the 4 teams that got in, I cannot deny, probably the best 4 teams out there. I think number 5 is Notre Dame, and number 6, even though I think college football playoff has it as Ohio State, I think it's Baylor. Just the way Baylor played against Oklahoma State, the way they played towards the end of the year. So I can't really fault how the 4 teams that are in. I don't see really anything wrong with that. I mean, personally, I'd probably put Cincinnati undefeated as number 1, but I understand they're the group of 5, so I have a little bit off with the rankings, because I think you could argue that Michigan should be number 1, the way especially they played their last couple of games and beating quality teams compared to what Alabama did these past couple weeks. But Alabama did beat the number 1 team in the country, so I see both sides of that coin. So like I said, I can't not disagree with how the rankings went out, because I think the college football playoff put it as Alabama, Michigan, Georgia, and then Cincinnati. Technically, I don't really see an issue. I personally went Michigan, Alabama, Cincinnati, and Georgia. So I had the same matchups. So we'll have to see how that the playoff kind of goes from there. So to see if we have a rematch in the championship game, I really hope not. I don't think we need to see Alabama and Georgia part 2. Even though I think it will be a good matchup, I really do. But I don't think we really need to see that. And so now that leads us to the final of the Chat Sports Talks PowerPoint Index Top 25. Even though next week you have Army-Navy going at it, there won't be a preview video for that, nor will I update my rankings after that game. So this is going to be my final. And to let you know, I did tweak my system this final week. So that the points for wins against the Power 5 schools actually decreased it to 2.5 points, and losses to Power 5 schools now will make you lose 1.5 points. That's kind of help, strengthen a little bit of the group of 5 members. But I also gave bonus points for those who won their conferences to kind of help elevate their position a little bit. So these final 25 is, like I said, a little off a little bit, but let's go ahead and just let you know this is the first time that none of the 25 in my top 25 fell out, so no newcomers. And you just see them, rotate positions. So now at my new number 25 was formerly 22nd, Purdue. Kentucky maintains a 24. NC State drops to 23 for 21. San Diego State only drops 3 slots to 22. Wisconsin only drops 1. Clemson drops 3 to 20. Iowa, after losing to Michigan, drops to number 19. Wake, after they're beat down by Pitt, drops to 18. Idle BYU only slides 1 to 17. Oregon goes from 7 to 16. Oklahoma State, idle, just drops down to 15. Utah makes the biggest jump up to 14 from 18 after beating Oregon again. And then number 13, you see Louisiana skyrocket up from 25. Now, one of the reason why I kind of did some of these things the way I did, because originally I still had Oregon over Utah, which made no sense whatsoever because Utah beat Oregon twice. That's the reason why I made some alterations to the system. And same thing with my top 12. I had Notre Dame was ahead of Cincinnati, despite their head-to-head matchup. So, and here's the 12. So you see number 12. And I got the 12-1 UTSA Roadrunners jumping up to 12 from 23, one of the biggest climbers. Ole Miss only drops 1. Michigan State also drops 1. Pitt makes their appearance in the top 10 at number 9. Ohio State drops 2. Oklahoma State drops to 7 after barely getting beat by Baylor, who is now at number 6. Maintaining 5 is Notre Dame. And here is how my top 4 goes in this point system. You'll see Cincinnati at number 4, moving up from 13. Georgia only drops down to 3. Alabama moves up to 2, and the new number 1 is Michigan. So, there's how the point system actually played out. So I had Alabama, Georgia going off right away again. So I think all in all, that part should have happened to really get that SEC rematch out of the way. So it gives, somebody else a chance. In other aspects for the college football playoff, they are still not in agreement about the expansion for coming up. And I will go more in depth into another video with this particular scenario. And when it comes to the bowl games, there's a bunch of bowl games. They like to play once a game. So I have to start looking at the time frame where I'm going to preview these bowls, since bowl season will kick off Friday, December 17th. So pretty much means, I'll probably end up kicking off a every Wednesday preview of the week's action. And that's part of the best way to go about that. to go from that 17th to, we'll say, that next Tuesday is the 21st, and just kind of go that direction and do like a week at a time. 4-6 this week. That Big 12 championship was really good. SEC championship was just, and the Big 10 championship was just a lopsided affair. Same thing ACC after the first quarter. And so it was a rough weekend for me. Try to say that 3 times correctly. Or 3 times fast and 1 time correctly. But as you know, Sam's back there watching my back. As you know, it's a holiday season, so make sure everyone be safe out there. Enjoy this, this time with your friends and family. And like I said, I'll get the video out to you sometime soon about my coverage of the expanded playoff. And the previews you start seeing around the 15th of December. I should get that video out to you about the first week bowl action. And just let me know what you think, especially how I did this season with college football. If you guys like to kind of what I've discussed, and which games I was completely way off on. Besides most of these weekend games. While you're there, you can smash that thumbs up for me. It pleases YouTube out, helps this channel out. You can also subscribe. I know I was looking at my analytics. I have a lot of viewers. I love you all for doing that, but not many of you subscribe. Doesn't cost you a dime, and it helps me provide more content for your entertainment purposes. I truly appreciate it if you all would just, join that. Once you subscribe, you hit that bell notification so next time I post a video. And I will see you next time on Chat Sports Talk.